All right, welcome to another episode of Modern Life. This week we're going to talk about the Hitchcock movie and also the short story Rear Window. But before we get into that, just want to let everyone know if you have something you want us to talk about or if you want to leave us some feedback, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Modern Life Pod. You can also email us. Our email address is modernlifepod@gmail.com. Let's do it. All right, I am here today with my sister Tabby and my lovely girlfriend Stacy. How are you guys?
Hi.
Hey.
And before we talk about Rear Window, this is our second week with our groundbreaking new segment called Modern Thought.
What's on your modern mind?
Just stuff that's on our mind. You want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Every time we do this, I just, whatever kind of pops up in my news feed that morning is like my modern thought. That's what kind of was last week. And this week, I had something pop up this morning about like medieval armor and fighting that I thought was really interesting. In movies, like they're all in their armor, they have their swords, and they're just beating each other with the swords, and people are like flying all over the place and everything, right? Like that would never happen like that because armor is way stronger than the sword. So these guys weren't just like beating against each other's armor with the sword. What they were doing is like if you have your free arm and like guiding the sword over the free arm and using the point of the sword to like pierce through weak areas of the armor. So it was more like a close combat, like they're like poking each other with the sword, like trying to get like the weakest parts were right by the neck, right where the armor kind of stops, or right by the groins. So these guys would be. There's this great video on YouTube of these guys were like Swedish or something, and they're like in full on armor that they made themselves, and they were demonstrating how the fight would actually go. And yeah, you're just like in this close combat, and you're kind of just like trying to poke each other with these swords.
So it's more specific and less broad sweeps.
Yeah, it's like super not how you would think of it if you've ever seen any movie about medieval times.
The armors are always form fitted too, and in armors you have this like line jutting out in front of your chest that goes vertically down, and then because it almost creates like a point in front of your chest. It's kind of hard to describe, but it's for armor to be repelled. And in movies, it's always like, you know, the abs are like inside part of the armor. And
not always.
You know,
Depends on the movie.
No, but I mean, there's always like a chest, like formation.
Yeah. That's.
I guess so. Yeah. But that's my modern thought. I thought that was interesting.
So mine is about fat storage.
Fat storage.
Yeah, because I think, do a lot to prevent our bodies from storing fat. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of misconceptions and also willful ignorance.
Did you say whaleful?
That was more of a wolf, never mind. So men and women store fat differently. Men store it more in their abdomen, which is where you get that kind of beer belly from, and women store fat in their
the booty, right?
Yeah, exactly, and in their thighs. And we spend so much time trying to get rid of like stretch marks, and there's no proven way to get rid of them. All these things that you're this whole market that people are pounding money into, it's basically useless. And stretch marks are there for your body to adjust to weight gain and weight loss. And always...
Stretch marks are kind of, what they are is your body's, some people have more elasticity in their skin. And so that elasticity, if you don't have that elasticity, then the stretch marks will occur. So it's like when you're pregnant, your belly gets really big. Yeah,
exactly.
Some people's skin is able to do it without stretch, showing the stretch marks, and other people's skin tends to like show the stretch marks. It's something that's hereditary. It's nothing to do with how much lotion you put on your skin.
Yeah, that's completely right. And it's also part of, like Stacy said, being pregnant and your body responding to weight loss and weight gain. And then going back to the men's side, because for your abs to show and for you not to have that little bit of fat storage in your belly, you have to have about 6 to 9% body fat. And for us,
6 to 9%.
Yeah.
I think you said 69%.
Oh no!
What? Like, all right.
And I think there's so much pressure for us to look like models when really that's almost like an insult to models because that is their job. They spend so much time monitoring their bodies. Like for a normal person to have that percentage, it's almost unattainable. And it's almost as if I'm suddenly upset that I don't have like the moves of a ballerina when that's not my job.
Right.
Now society's not forcing me to be a ballerina. There's more of a push towards you have to look like a superhero. Pecs,
what are those
no matter
workout
what.
classes where you're with the ballerina bars?
They're
I
called
don't
bar
know.
classes.
No,
they're called bar classes.
Yeah, so
and
it'd
it's
be
all
like,
ballerina.
It'd be like if Tabby went to a bar class and then was upset that she wasn't a
Exactly.
ballerina.
Yeah.
So just kind of elevating our consciousness of, because this is pushed on us and so many products being sold rely on us, having this negative body image.
Well, the funny part about that is that your body actually, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I study nutrition. That's kind of like my thing. And one of the interesting facts is that it's actually really unhealthy to not have some body fat. Body fat is there for a reason. It's actually there to be used as a cushion for your internal organs. It's used for heat. So I don't know if you've noticed some people that are really skinny tend to get cold really easily. And that's actually really unhealthy for your body. Your body needs to maintain a 98.6 degree temperature inside, and if that doesn't have that temperature, your body can't function. Like the whole point of it is to maintain that internal temperature, basically. So it's quite interesting that there is such a pull to like have 0% body fat when it's really, in a nutrition standpoint, it's great to work out. But there's this new transition right now that's going on where they're talking about how you can be fit but still have weight on you. It's like it's always been this thing where like, oh, you have to be really skinny to have like heart health, and it's like completely a falsehood. It doesn't matter how much weight you have; it matters how much exercise you do and what you put into your body. Because some people are naturally going to be a little bit more cushioned than other people, and it doesn't mean that they're fat. It doesn't mean that they're unhealthy. It means just that that's what they're doing, and as long as they're exercising and maintaining that. I don't know what the word is to him, but that the drive toward eating correctly and stuff like that, then they're getting the nutrients they need for their body. There was an actual great article that Tabby posted online.
Is this your thing?
Yeah.
Is this your modern thought?
No, my modern thought, it goes directly in the opposite direction. But yeah, I just had a lot to say about that.
In the opposite direction.
Well, not the opposite direction. It just goes toward, my modern thought actually goes toward how we teach our, I grew up learning this like false history about the United States of America, where we talk about America in viewpoint of European culture. And there was this whole other culture that existed in America before, in North America and South America and in Central America before they even came across. But you were taught as a kid that this whole continent was like basically had like maybe a couple thousand Native Americans, and that's it. And case be known, it actually had a bigger population than Europe at the time, almost like in the millions. And with the mixing of the two cultures, there like plague occurred, and like all kinds of disease is what really wiped out a lot of the Native Americans. But that was caused by this need for, Europeans to come over and basically conquer in any way that they could. This is completely obliterated in all of our culture that we teach our children, all of our history we teach our children. And I think that it's interesting and nice to see that it's starting to be told, but I think it's sad that we're still not introducing it to a younger age.
Right, but like the kids don't get school off anymore for Columbus Day. Like it's all kind of...
There's changes occurring, but it's a really small... I mean, yes, in California, we actually call Columbus Day Indigenous Day now, but...
Indigenous?
Indigenous.
Indigenous
but in
Day.
a lot of states, they still don't. It's not widespread in the United States, and it's still not taught. And they still have the kids do missionary assignments in...
I don't know what that is.
Okay, so in 4th grade, you have this big project, where you have to make a missionary and learn all about Spanish missionaries, because it is a huge part of, California culture, but they don't really talk about it in the sense of like what missionaries really did, which was basically it was a slave. It was a slave place. It was a place where you were forced to change your culture, change your religion. It was a place that you were forced to work 10 to 12 hours a day. You weren't allowed to practice any of your cultural background in any way, shape, or form. And there was abuse that went on, rape. I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff. And this stuff is just completely left out. So I thought that was interesting, and that's my depressing fact.
No, I want a quick question about the body fat. So what is a healthy body fat to have?
I think it
varies upon your body type and like on your person.
Okay.
And then also women usually have more fat, and the body can deal with that fat in a better way. Men are more susceptible to kinds of diseases related with being overweight because their bodies don't need fat for children. So that's why men usually have more problems with it than women do. Yeah.
Well,
I don't know.
Well. All right. Fun fact time's over.
Hey, was this your first Hitchcock movie that you've ever seen?
No.
Okay.
I've seen a Hitchcock movie before.
Okay.
I saw, what did I see? No, I've seen a couple of them.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not that ignorant. Jeez.
No, my brother the other day
Sister
went,
thinks so
hey,
highly
what's
of me."
that movie they show at the Oscars with the guy running from the plane? And I was like,
No, I
you
knew
mean
what movie
Cary
it
Grant?
was. I just couldn't think of the title or the actor.
That one guy.
No, but we're talking about how, like, every award ceremony, they always have, the montage of Hollywood, and it's always the same. It's like Cary Grant running away from the plane, and like
Citizen Kane
the Elephant
and
Man.
Forrest Gump.
I'm a human being. Yeah, Forrest Gump on the bench. It's like always the same. Like, let's celebrate movies, and it's just always the same.
5
montage.
movies.
Yeah, always the same. Oh, it's like Brad Pitt, Benjamin Button flexing in the mirror. It's like all these these trademark movie moments. It's always the same crap. Anyways.
So this movie was based on a short story, which I had no idea. So I went ahead and read the short story.
How old is the short story?
It's pretty old because I didn't have to pay for it either, so I'm not sure if it's in...
So the movie was made in 54?
In the 50s.
I think I want to say it's 54, 56, something like that. But
54, yeah.
54, but the short story is way older, right?
I honestly don't remember,
Okay.
but the short story is called It Had to Be Murder.
Right.
And I think this is definitely one of those instances where the movie is better than the book. That's a little unfair because it is Alfred Hitchcock turning a short story into a movie,
I mean,
so of course
can we
it's
call a
gonna
short
be-
story a book?
I don't know. It just, the writing didn't blow me away, and then it made mysteries out of things that I didn't think had to be mysteries.
Like
you
what?
find out at the end of the story that he is in a cast the whole time. It just says he's immobilized, and I'm like, why wasn't that said at the beginning? Like, why is
Right.
this something
Yeah, it seems
that's
silly.
like a
They also didn't they
secret?
also change the he changed the person that came to see them. Like there was no love story in the original thing, and there was the person that came to see him was male, right, instead of female.
His helper.
Yeah.
Like the nurse character.
He doesn't really have a nurse in the story. It's more of
Right.
like his assistant from
Got
work,
it.
kind of. And then there's just him and the other window. You don't have that kind of panorama of all these other stories going on these other windows
Right.
that tie into the main story.
So it's just the main story in the short story?
Yeah.
Of just, okay.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to do a really quick? Did we do a preview of what the movie is?
Yeah,
just
go
in
ahead.
case?
Absolutely.
No, I think you should do it. You're always better at these than I am.
So Jimmy Stewart is in a wheelchair. He took a really amazing photo, and his camera got destroyed. That photo is amazing of him on the racetrack.
I was going to say,
in the beginning.
so...
He would be dead.
He's a photojournalist.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't sure exactly if, I figured as much because you see the racetrack photo and the broken camera, like that's how he got injured, but I wasn't entirely sure.
There's a whole phone conversation about it where he's talking to his guy and says that he took the picture that was
Of the year,
yeah.
No, I don't remember.
So
Okay.
he doesn't have Wi-Fi, so all he can do is look out the window. He doesn't have Netflix. And kind of observe his neighbors. And there's a murder plot that he is kind of uncovering together with his girlfriend and his awesome badass nurse.
And
She's my
also his
favorite.
detective friend.
Yeah.
And there's all these other stories being observed
And you
in
don't
this
go
courtyard of the...
You don't go anywhere else. This is the set. This is where the whole movie takes place.
So I was reading up on the movie after we watched it, and I felt like such an idiot. I didn't realize the camera never leaves his apartment.
Oh, never.
There's only, I actually wrote this down because I didn't notice it when I watched it before. There's only one shot where that doesn't happen, and it almost feels like a mistake. To me, it is a mistake.
One is that?
It's when the dog dies and Miss Torso is crying, and it's a close up of her from the side, like crying.
Oh, is it?
And it's not out of the. It feels really bizarre because it doesn't fit into the theme of everything's being seen out of the one viewpoint.
I didn't even notice that.
But that was the only time that happens.
Right. And another fun fact, when I was kind of researching the movie afterwards, so that whole set, that entire apartment building courtyard, completely built from scratch on the Paramount lot.
Yeah, it was.
It was an unprecedented, modern day would be like over $700,000, which was like unheard of at the time to make a set for that much money. But, I mean, this is also Hitchcock we're talking about, so he got his way.
Yeah, the set cost at the time $9,000 to design and $72,000 to actually be made, which is pretty incredible. But the detail in the set was what made the movie. Like the fact that you could see the street and see see the open, that Hitchcock actually sent people to Greenwich and had them film like in all weather, like take pictures so that he could get an idea of exactly what Greenwich looks like in all hours of the day.
Huh.
And in all weather.
Interesting.
Yeah. I just think the attention to detail is what makes the movie, and I think that's one of Hitchcock's brilliance in most of his movies. It's just he pays such close attention to everything, even to there's a picture in the background of Stewart in I think fighter jets, and it's an actual picture of him when he was in the military that he got blown up for the screen.
Nice.
Which was really cool. And everything down to the kids playing in the background in the water to show how hot it was. You know what I mean? Like in the watering of the street.
Let's talk about the background noises for a little bit.
I love that.
So authentic.
Yes.
It really feels like you're there. And actually, even though the movie has an amazing score, the title sequence and the last song and the song Lisa, which is the song that the pianist is working on, that's kind of basically it. Everything else is just background noises. There's not like a soundtrack coming,
Which you don't usually like when it's the same song used over and over again, but you don't mind it with this movie.
No, because it's not used over and over and over again. It's only used at points where it matters, and the rest is just not silence, but, the kids playing or the birds chirping or the...
This movie is actually referred to as a diegetic, which means that all the music and speech and other sounds all come from within the movie.
Right. Yeah.
Which I thought was really interesting. And then the only time that they have any other thing is in the beginning, first 3 shots.
Yeah.
I just love, it's like every time you hear the piano, I just knew in the back of my head, the guy's playing there by the window.
Or practicing scales.
And it really makes that whole world come to life, because you always know there's stuff going on in the background, right? There's this whole other world out there.
Oh, that's what I mean by his attention to detail. Even the the what do they call her? The dancer.
Miss Torso.
Miss Torso. Yeah. She was an actual dancer. She was 17. It was her first role.
Yeah.
And she basically lived in the apartment the entire movie.
Oh, did she?
Yeah,
I didn't know
she literally from morning till night stayed in the apartment. She ate, drank, slept in the apartment because they wanted it to make it look more as real as possible.
Right.
So they thought that was
a little studio apartment.
Mm-hmm. And another fun fact is the scene with the mattress.
Yeah.
And the couple that always were sleeping on the balcony to show how hot it was. Well, they actually, Hitchcock was known to mess with the actors and had this scene where he, when they started to rain, and he told one of the actors to pull one way and the other actor to pull the other way. That's why it looks so realistic and so funny when he felt that was actually not planned.
When he fell through the window, it wasn't planned, right?
Yeah.
He just we thought it was so funny that he just kept it in.
Yeah.
That's another beauty of this movie is these little peppered moments of really funny scenes or just dialogue in the midst of this kind of murder tension, right? I don't know.
And I think because it's so stationary, especially Jimmy Stewart, he's very immobilized. They add so many dynamics to a scene. Because you could literally just have two people looking at each other and talking. Right. But like when the nurse comes in, they'll move to the massage table, then she's massaging him, then she's folding the sheet. Like people are always messing with... And I think that goes to the set design, too, of actually having props there in a livable environment that makes the actors want to interact with it.
Yeah, all of the apartments were actually had running water and, So I just thought that...
like most of them were completely built out.
Yeah. Completely livable, which was super cool. But I think it does tell a lot of the backstory because of that. Like, it told, like, the entire backstory without actually having to verbalize it. So, like, they used the scene to... So you know how sometimes there's these long monologues where it tells like all the backstory? This movie did it by just using this like the set, which I thought was really cool.
The set or just panning the camera past the pictures, right? It's like it's not like a lot of movies today where everything has to be so laid out. It's like, okay, I can connect the little puzzle pieces.
Yeah, it's like, and it's fun to watch it over and over again because you catch things that you didn't catch the first time.
Right. Am I the only one? Okay, this is the thing that bothered me most about the movie is he's got, he's sitting in front of 3 giant windows just looking out in the courtyard and like nobody sees this guy just looking out the window all day. Yeah. It's like he's invisible. I don't know, he's not like looking out one little window. He's got this like just giant, he's got this living room just opened up, right? And no one sees him. I don't know. I kept thinking about that.
That is very true. The other thing that made no sense to me was the flower bed. Because if Jimmy Stewart's watching all the time, when that guy Gold have time to bury it? Then he kills the dog while the shutters are drawn, because Grace Kelly closes everything, show's over for tonight. But then later we found out that nothing is actually buried there, and he dug it back up because the dog got too curious. Then why do you have to kill the dog if you're like, oh, the dog is too curious, I'm gonna dig this back up?
Because the guy.
But if nothing is there, then why did he? That draws even more attention to his dead dog. It didn't make sense.
I guess, but he's also just. If he's a murderer and he's remember when the lady saw the dog and she's like,
exactly.
Go,
yeah,
like,
she's
he's gonna he's not a good guy and
he's never been thought of as a nice guy by the neighbors. Like you get that impression just from how she reacted.
And maybe he's just under pressure from if he did he just committed a murder and then the dog is messing with the evidence.
But then
honestly, if he was really that smart, then why would he go over to the house and just continue to murder them when he sees them in front of the open mirror, the open window? He's obviously overreacting at this point.
I just don't know when he had time to kill the dog, then dig up what was in the flower bed, make it look nice again, like there's flowers on it, and then.
Right.
I don't know. It just doesn't.
I also want to know about the salesman. He obviously has a whole thing organized to cover up this murder because the detective said, "Oh, the wife picked up the package," and it's like an elaborate.
Well, that was all based off of 2 murders. The entire backstory of the murders was based off of 2 actual murders that Hitchcock found in the press in Britain, a Britain press magazine.
What do you mean? Because that lady is in the short story.
No, I'm not saying that, but just the details. Let me find it.
What I actually found really cool in the short story, the apartment above is being renovated, so he ends up cementing his wife into the apartment above because they're redoing the floors or whatever, and that's
in the short story.
In the short story, which I don't know, I like that. Thought that was.
Yeah, I guess I'm just intrigued by. This guy obviously had it all planned out about how he was gonna murder his wife. It's not just a crime of passion because he's got this whole everything set up to kind of cover his tracks, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. My first time watching the movie last night, and for most of the movie, I'm like, I don't know. I was given the salesman the benefit of the doubt. I'm like, maybe these guys are just crazy, and he's just coming up with an elaborate plot for his neighbor, and maybe the salesman just didn't do anything at all. Right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you not have that when you first watched it?
That's the whole brilliance of the movie. It was one of the biggest twists of,
Right.
That's what it's known for, is the surprise ending.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So, I don't know.
Yeah, that guy isn't very smart because at the end when he sees the cops in his apartment and he keeps trying to kill Jimmy Stewart, at that point I would just run away.
Right.
Because he's going to get caught, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I think he just like kind of loses it.
I want to talk about Miss Lonely Hearts.
What about her?
When I first watched this movie, to me she was the most pathetic character.
Okay.
I just thought it was ridiculous that she was always like...
So to remind people, she's the neighbor at the very bottom. She's like super depressed. She doesn't
wants
have
a relationship.
Right.
She like has a whole scene where she like pretends that somebody's in her apartment, like having dinner with her.
Yeah, and now watching it, I actually thought there was so much truth in her story. Because think about all the things we do today, like all the dating apps has become almost like an activity of like swiping through these people and like dating games. I love dating games. Like those like sim apps, what are they?
What's the daddy game?
Oh, Dream Daddy. That's right.
Dream Daddy.
So good.
Remember the music from the main menu? Who's your daddy?
And she's not just wants like affection from in a romantic relationship, but you don't see any friends coming over. Like the other apartments have like parties, and like she's just so alone. And when I was living in New York for half a year, that was the loneliest time I've ever had. I didn't know anybody. I didn't form any relation. Like to go anywhere, it cost money.
Yeah.
I basically just stayed in my studio apartment with my roommate, and I was the only person I knew. So
interesting.
I just this time around I was like rooting for Miss Lonely Hearts. Like,
wait, was the first?
Did you notice that she in the end was in the songwriters?
Yeah.
Yeah. She gets her happy ending.
Yeah.
Do you think they start dating?
I don't know.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, why are you so certain?
Because that's what makes her happy.
No, what makes her happy is like the music, right? You don't know that they're gonna start dating.
Oh, that's how I saw it.
That's how I saw it too.
I do want to talk about that song though, because it's called Lisa, and in the beginning, Grace Kelly says it's almost as if it was written for us, and then Jimmy Stewart's like that's why he's having so much trouble with the song. And throughout the whole movie, he's trying to compose a song. Right? We see him like going back to the piano or like getting angry over it, and like throwing a sheet music.
Right.
And by the end of the movie, he gets the song right. It's what saves Miss Lonely Hearts, and it's like a metaphor for their relationship, right? Like it was always in discord, and now, and as the song is playing, you see Grace Kelly on the bed, and it's the first time we see her wearing flats. So that also signifies a change. And wearing
She's
pants.
wearing like pants. Her whole outfit is like much more like. But I thought was interesting was also that during that scene she's like reading the mystery book, and then as soon as she realizes he's asleep, she puts it down and she grabs her bazaar, because that's really what she is.
And I think people see that as nothing's changed, but that doesn't make as much sense to me.
I definitely think there's been a change.
Yeah, I want to talk about that, because the way Jimmy Stewart's character attributes worth to a profession is, it's upsetting, right? Because he thinks he's like doing all this important work, and she's.
That's not the way I got it at all.
Really?
I just thought
I think it's just like he likes the adventure. Like he
didn't seem condescending to me at all. He was just like, you're this model in high heels, like, and I'm going all over the world, and I'm in these difficult situations.
When she talks about her day, though, and then he asks her something only to make fun of her, like, oh, what was Mrs. So-and-so wearing? And then she starts to describe it because it's very important to her, and it's like, but then he just starts making fun of her.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it's like more of like a love banter teasing kind of thing. I never really got that. I mean, I get that he's putting her down toward like, because her values are completely different than his. Like he values the chase, the trying new things, the being on the edge, and she values like the nice dinner and coming home, and like that's a very different platform. Actually, the relationship was based off Hitchcock, a relationship that Ingrid Bergman had with a photojournalist, and that's where Alfred Hitchcock was obsessed with Ingrid Bergman, so he like kind of plays that relationship out in this.
The screenwriter also based Grace Kelly on his wife, so a lot of the banter between them apparently once the screenwriter's wife was watching it in the theater. She was like, I know where you got that from. Like,
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, I thought that was
didn't
kind
know
of cute.
I actually had a little bit of trouble with Stuart and Kelly's relationship because I didn't really know what either person is getting out of the other one.
Well,
And like, why is she so in love with him? Like, why are they even together?
yeah,
and then,
why does she like this guy? Like,
then-
he has no interest in her.
then when she, the scene where she brings the dinner over from the restaurant and then leaves, she's like, I won't be back till tomorrow night. But it's like, why? Yeah, it's just like, why is she sticking with this guy? Like, I just don't know. I don't know. I just had a little bit of trouble with that.
I get that from the scene where they're watching Miss Torso, and she's describing the wolves. And like,
Right.
That line, she's doing a woman's hardest job, juggling wolves.
Right.
yeah, that's such a great line, and I think that has a lot to do with why she's with.
But then when she leaves that first night, he's like, well, can't we just keep it status quo? Which is like, he just wants like a friend with benefits at that point, right? I don't know.
I think that has to do with like the whole like male giving up like his like this whole thing is just his fear of commitment and like having to settle down and like not be what he is right now.
But I don't really know what they're fighting about because, okay, so I don't know if this is true, but if they get married, she automatically quits her job, right? And then they're fighting over would she come with him or would he stay and open up a studio and she gets
why
to stay
is
in
that
New
a
York?
thing? Oh, because they're in different cities?
I don't know what that's the. I am honestly asking because I don't know what they're fighting about. Because
Yeah,
they
the
both seem like very like people who are very good at their jobs and want to continue doing that. And why would she have to come with? Why would the magazine pay for her to come with him to go
Right.
on these trips? Like
I feel
that's
like it
what
has
I'm
to do
not.
with the era that the movie was made in. I think now it wouldn't be a big deal at all, but back
Right.
then it was like when you got married, you
Or
quit
maybe
and you stayed home and
is he on the road that much that
That
he's just
she
never
would
She,
have
like,
to
doesn't-
come with him.
No,
Like,
it's just
that's
like
what
she obviously wants a husband and probably a family, and if he's on the road 300 days a year, like it's just not.
I guess I just didn't see her like that because she was such a career woman and she was so
Right.
like they seem like these very like modern new age people who were
Yeah.
both. So I don't exactly know what the conflict was, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe she just had to quit her job. That's just what would have happened. But I want to talk about her, what you said earlier, of him not showing any interest in her sexually whatsoever. Like, she's always the one initiating everything.
Right.
Is Jimmy Stewart an asexual queer icon?
Good Lord.
I don't know.
He's just so obsessed with this, whatever's happening in the courtyard, but it is weird.
But even before that, Stella says, you have a hormone deficiency. And Jimmy Stewart has a line that says, people have different emotional
Interesting.
levels. And, like, he just seems like this very
He's
non-sexual.
way older than her, isn't he?
There's a 20-year difference between them.
Maybe just, his sex drive is just...
I don't really necessarily get that. I think that he's just I don't know. I
don't
mean, he
know.
definitely
Just
was
throwing it
odd.
out
Like
there.
his mouth dropped open when she walked out of the out of the
Right.
bedroom and like her like little get up. Like
Yeah.
he was entranced. I think it's just his own personal dilemma with their relationship at that moment.
But, like, is she obsessed by, like, his bad boy image? He's, like, traveling all around the world. Like, what does she see in this guy? Like, I feel like that never gets
He's
answered.
a fixer-upper. She needs a project.
It's like a poor man's Indiana Jones. He's traveling all over the place. Like, is she intrigued by that? And, like, does she... I don't know.
I mean, when they're just talking, they definitely have like banter back and forth. There's chemistry.
Right.
I don't know. I like the whole like Miss Torso scene where they like show the guy that she's actually interested in afterwards, and he's like 2 inches shorter than her and looks like the guy from Ghostbusters.
Oh, my God,
Like
yes.
brilliant. I don't know. I guess it's just the opposites attract kind of thing. I feel like Hitchcock plays off that a little bit.
I love how all the stories play out. You're really invested in
totally.
like all the different apartments and what's going on in them.
The only one I
and-
wasn't that invested in is the
This-
new couple on the side.
Oh,
apartment.
really?
I'm like, I don't really know what's going on there.
They were
Like,
having sex the whole
I
time.
get that.
Okay, no.
Well, did you get that they also like? I guess he lost his job and he didn't tell her before the marriage.
Oh, I see. I
Did
didn't
you
get
like
that.
miss
No,
that
I didn't
scene?
hear
Yeah,
that.
it was like a brief thing in the background, and you see them fighting for the first time.
Oh, okay. Okay, I want to talk about his detective friend because, okay, So here's what happens, right? He calls over his detective friend Doyle on the guy's day off. The guy goes on this crazy goose chase. He gets all this information about his neighbor. He goes on all these leads. He talks to all these witnesses, like, oh, they saw the wife leave and all of this. And then when they're in the apartment, he's telling them there isn't really anything going on here based off all this information I've gathered. They just like shun him and treat him like this guy's just been like working for free on this stupid hunch on his neighbor. Like, I thought that was really strange. Like, well, you're not seeing things the way we are, so get out of this apartment. You know.
In the book, they actually go in and search the apartment without a search warrant. They wait for the guy to leave. So I appreciated that in the movie, the guy's like, no, this is against the law.
I just thought that was a really strange dynamic. Like, this guy's just been working for free on this hunch.
I don't know. I think it kind of plays out with their entire... I feel like it plays out with their entire relationship. Like, their banter back and forth is them putting each other down. And, like, the moment they enter to the moment they leave. Like, I feel like that's just kind of how they are.
Just how they...
Yeah, like, they just communicate.
That's how his relationship with his friend
Yeah,
is.
you know, like... I don't know. I have no people that are like that, where their entire relationship is just like bantering back and forth, putting each other down. But when it comes to it, they like both have each other's back.
But at the end, he's what do you say? Next time you need something, pick someone from the Yellow Pages, something like that.
Yeah, but he's still like, I still think it's part of the banter.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
like I get it, because again, he calls later and it tells him like you need to come over, and he instantly comes. Like, it's just their banter.
Yes. Yeah.
No, that guy had a rough.
I was totally Team Doyle. Just a bunch of crap. This guy went above and beyond for his friend, like chasing down multiple leads and information. You know.
I just want to talk about his suit really quickly, because the jacket is very long, and then the pants are pretty wide, and it's a very specific, time period in fashion.
Right.
And I just thought it was interesting. I don't know if that would fly these days.
Come on, I know you want to talk about Kelly's dresses and outfits.
Okay.
Come on.
What's your favorite?
I like the first one she walks in with.
That's the classic one.
Just this wavy dress, and it's got
with the white.
Well, it's got these little black designs on the top of the dress.
I like the black one that she wore the second day. I love that dress.
Oh, that with the pleats.
So beautiful.
Yeah, that first one, I actually looked into getting a replica of it, but it was like $300 on Etsy. So the costume designer, her name is Edith Head. She holds the record for a woman with the most Oscars. She has 8 wins and 35 nominations.
No way.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
All for costume design?
For costume design,
I've never heard of her.
And she would be loaned out all the time because especially female actresses only wanted to work with her.
Crazy.
Because she made it a collaboration, as opposed to a lot of the male costume designers are like, this is what you're going to wear.
Right.
And she would always, people would just fall in love with her because she would just work with them so closely. The costumes in this are just phenomenal.
Oh, they're amazing.
Yeah, everyone looked fabulous. I love when the salesman realizes someone's watching him, and then he finally looks into the lens. I'm waiting for that. Like, I know the guy's eventually gonna look right at Kelly's character, right? It's so satisfying when he finally looks over, and
it's so creepy.
You're in the zoomed in lens, like the rim, the edges of the screen are blacked out, and you're looking through the lens, and he just looks right at him. You're like, oh no!
Yeah, they actually created like a new camera for this movie where they had to like
to make it look like it went through the lens. I'm not surprised.
Interesting.
Yeah. You also know that character Lars Thorwald was based off of David O. Selznick, an old producer that Hitchcock had an issue with.
You with all the fun facts.
I know. He was he even down to like the glasses and like the way he cast the guy in it it just says like to make fun.
I think they worked on Rebecca together.
Yes, exactly, Rebecca. And I guess he was too involved in Rebecca, and he pissed off Hitchcock.
Yeah, I think it's also very easy to make Hitchcock angry. This dude seems like a guy with a huge ego.
Control freak for sure.
weird guy. The dog dying is always upsetting to me. I just want to throw that out there. It's a cute little puppy in the basket.
Yep.
Man.
Poor little doggy.
Oh, that scene when he switches from his binoculars to the giant long lens. That is a very long scene. That would not...
Is it?
Yeah, because we see the whole thing play out, and then he wheels back in his wheelchair, and he looks through his bag,
right?
and he gets the thing out, and that is something you would not see in movies today. That would be like cuts. Like that would be like...
Yeah, but I think that adds to the whole build of the movie. Like
it's just an interesting movie making thing
decision.
That just evolved, and we're no longer doing that.
Right.
I just thought it's not good or bad or anything.
It has been a little while since I've seen a movie from the 50s, and it is just crazy how different. I mean, it's just these. I mean, the two people in the frame, and they're just talking for a minute, and there's no cuts at all, and it's just.
That's a Hitchcock thing.
I know, but also just in general. I mean, things like you just explained, the guy getting his camera, going around the apartment in his wheelchair. I mean, it's just, no quick cuts or anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just such a different style of movie making.
I feel like it goes so much more onto like how people talk to each other versus, or like, what's the word I'm looking for? The script, basically.
Yeah.
Like there's way more script
Realistic
heavy.
dialogue.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, if Hitchcock was alive today, he would be making the movies of today. Like, he didn't have
totally.
cameras with the high speed available that we have today to make these things. And actually, his other movie, Rope, which also takes place in the same apartment, that movie's famous for just shots that go on forever and ever. It's just one single take. So,
who's the guy's favorite character?
Oh, is it the nurse?
It's Stella.
The nurse is pretty good,
Yeah.
right?
It's Stella.
It's
I just think
everyone's
she's
favorite
so
character.
funny.
I like Miss Lonely Hearts too.
Really?
Like,
Yeah. She's a little bit of a downer. The nurse with those one-liners. She's just the best.
She's amazing.
She's just like a firecracker, man.
Oh, I wanted, because the movie makes a lot of mention of female intuition, but it doesn't, the characters in the movie pass judgment on that, but I don't think the movie itself does, because the opinions and hunches these women have is what leads to them figuring it out in the end. And I didn't notice that as a through thread the first time I watched it, because I was also really young. But it actually starts with Stella talking about that CEO, the General Motors, the company that goes under.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Stewart predicted it. And then she predicts it just based on like, oh, I knew he didn't have like a kidney infection, and I knew he was stressed out. And that meant it's like, again, something that they call like female intuition or not based on facts. When she is like, she's been a nurse all her life. She knows when a medical condition means something else, and that goes back to Grace Kelly's things of a woman would never leave her handbag behind. Or,
Can we talk about woman hunches in this movie, and then Grace Kelly climbing windows and balconies and high heels?
Oh my God!
Like, are you out of your mind?
I forgot she goes from the like fire escape.
Oh
she climbs into the window.
God.
I forgot about that.
Like in those high heels. Like I wonder if was that an actual stunt woman climbing in high heels? Like when she goes from the fire escape to the window. Because I mean, this is an actual apartment building that got built on the set, and someone is like doing that. It had to be a stunt lady, right?
It's crazy. I don't know. Maybe
she's wearing those high heels. I'm like, oh my God.
Women back then didn't wear anything but high heels, though.
No.
So, like, their abilities to walk in those things were, like, way better than we are today. At least I am.
It's just
I
scary.
Me too.
Scary. Oh, wait, the salesman, why can't he close his eyes when he keeps repeatedly getting flashed by the flash bulbs at the end of the movie?
I love that. The like weapon is the
He just turns into this monster. He's like, oh, takes 2 steps, and then Stewart flashes him right. He's like, oh, he blinks, and he's like keeps stomping along.
That's a iconic,
surreal
amazing
moment.
I love it.
No, it's fantastic, but it's just funny. He gets flashed like 5 times, and he's okay. Maybe close your eyes at some point. I don't know. But weren't you saying when we were watching that movie? I mean, so when he gets flashed and like the orange goes across the screen, you were saying something last night about that being some crazy special effect or something.
I was making a joke.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know, like back in the 50s, how I'm sure it was like a process to bleed the orange into that frame, right?
And the green screen of him falling out the window, right? That was,
right.
Or well, I don't know what they used, but
there's also an effect where they obviously layered a couple shots in the beginning when the helicopter. It's like in the first quarter of the movie. There's a helicopter going in the apartment building.
That's actually like the only scene that I don't think holds up.
I don't know what that is because it's like two lesbians on the roof taking their clothes off, or
like
what
I don't really know.
Yeah, I don't know
there?
It was the only like the rest of the movie. It was like everything I could like believe. It was like it could hold up today. You know what I mean? But that one scene with the helicopter, I was like, that shouldn't have. I wish it wasn't there.
Yeah.
I also think it's curious that so in this part of New York at that time it was mostly. I think it was mostly white people, but then the only character of color is the servant on the phone. Did you notice that?
The servant
I
on the
thought
phone?
It was an
Yeah, the
interesting
servant
choice.
on the phone.
When
well, I mean, you're
calls
assuming that's what it is
Right.
because of the
the
demeanor.
person had a
Well, and
Ebonic
the
accent.
guy bringing the food from the restaurant is not. I mean, he's
Oh yeah, he could be.
like Hispanic
Yeah,
or
he
something.
could
I don't
be
know.
Hispanic.
He's got something going on
that's
there.
True. I just didn't. That's again another thing that maybe because also my English wasn't as good, I didn't notice her accent as being like an Ebonic accent.
Is there that many people of color in Hitchcock movies in general, though?
No.
Well,
Not
I mean,
really,
we're
right?
talking about when it was made too. It wasn't it wasn't like a big
right.
thing back then for that to be occurring.
It's like that stupid thing from SNL 2 weeks ago. She goes, "There's plenty of parts for Asian ladies, and I had all of them."
I played them all. It's like this old white lady. That was funny.
Well, so ultimately, everyone has a happy ending, though, in the movie, right?
Except for the married couple
Ex-
and the
yeah.
dog.
And the dog.
The dog.
The
But they got a
poor
new dog in the end.
That is true.
It's a really
yeah.
cute
That's
little
And
true.
that's
dog.
that makes it all okay.
Makes
Yeah.
everything okay. Man, I don't know if I could. That's literally like a day. She gets a dog like a day later. No.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah,
Right? I
basically,
didn't
like
remember now that I'm thinking about it. Her dog dies and she gets a new dog the next day.
That doesn't happen.
Wow.
It's funny.
That's messed up.
One last note I had about Grace Kelly. Her movements are so graceful and fluid and almost like dance-like.
Right.
And
It's like floating across.
And I actually,
floor.
I love her demeanor and I love her, just the presence she has.
Mhm.
I don't know if I would call her like an amazing actress. I just can see how she went from this to then being like literally a princess. You know?
Right.
Well, I mean, supposedly she was like, I mean, she had kind of a reputation, but she was like a huge flirt, and
Didn't Stewart's wife? Was
yeah,
always
Stuart
on
White
the
was
set?
on the set
She
the
was
entire
worried.
time because
Yeah.
he was like so scared because she had like, but she was also had a reputation of being like one of the nicest people you'll ever meet, like super sweet and just like very genteel, and everybody thought she was like beautiful.
Because the interview with the screenwriter that I was watching said when he found out that he was writing for Grace Kelly, he was like, "Oh, I thought she was kind of stiff in like other movies, but I feel like we brought out all her best aspects in this movie." So I don't. Yeah, just the way she projects herself, like
Right.
you can see like
Oh,
her
yeah.
doing well in like a royal
For
role.
sure. She's
you
got
know?
that air about her. But yeah, I mean, we all love the movie, right? 10 out of 10.
Oh, show.
It's funny. It's one of these movies when you Google it and all the reviews come up. I mean, it's like Rotten Tomatoes, 100%. Roger Ebert, 4 out of 4. I mean, it's just.
Well, it's like number
Yeah.
48 on the list of
classic.
all-time best movies.
Yeah.
I'm glad you made me watch it.
And
I
I know-
should be watching more older movies.
I know a lot of podcasts do Rear Window, so we're not very original. But we wanted to do something kind of like more suspenseful for October, and
Yeah, right.
It felt like this
Because
kind
we're
of
not really into horror movies.
yeah, like kind of topped it off. It was one of the best for sure.
this is a lot of people's favorite Hitchcock
Yeah.
movie. And I mean, it makes sense why.
And yeah, it's not really, because I asked you yesterday, I'm like, is it a slow burner? And you're like, no, it's not a slow burner.
I don't feel like it's a slow burner.
No, it's not at all. I guess it's just it's just kind of suspenseful throughout, right? Kind of after the first quarter of the movie and you get into it, and then you're just on the trail of the salesman. You're like, what's going to happen?
I just wanted to mention one of my favorite lines by Stella, which is like when they're talking about the flower bed, and she's like, only way he could have bird her in there is standing up. It just kills me. And when she's like describing sewing up the body while he's trying to eat breakfast.
Yeah, that was funny. But on the other hand, I was like, this guy's bragging about like eating
fish heads.
Eating like monkey brains and stuff. So it's like, really, is he gonna like that's gonna ruin his appetite?
Yeah, that's true.
But I don't know. I think Jimmy Stewart's timing on everything is so well done. Like his facial expressions make me laugh. Like
when he's like itching himself.
Movie. Yeah,
that's maybe my favorite parts.
It's like these long scenes when he like. Most of the time would have just been cut out, but like because of the way he does it, it makes it one of the funniest scenes in the movie.
Just the satisfaction on his face when he finally gets to itch is amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Any final thoughts on the movie?
I like the lamps in the apartment.
The 3 lamps.
Oh, those were nice.
Boop, boop, boop. Turning on all the 3 lamps.
Well, she actually has to turn on each lamp. You know, in movies when somebody walks into a room, turns on the switch.
Everything turns on.
Every single light in the house turns on.
Yeah, it all, because there's usually only one outlet connected to the switch if you have that, right?
Yeah.
So everyone in movies, they all link that one outlet together with extension cords. I also, I think the thing, just cinematically, the thing that most stood out to me is when he points out that the salesman didn't come to the window. And then it shows the salesman's dark apartment and just the red cigarette light glowing in the dark. Remember that?
Creepy.
I think that might be my favorite cinematic. I love that.
They took that straight from the short story and it works really well.
Yeah. That's the moment you're like, okay, this guy's kind of. That's for me when I was like on the fence the whole time, and then it just shows him sitting in the dark smoking that cigarette. I'm like, oh, okay, there's something not right about this guy. Also, just looks really cool.
It's definitely cool.
So that makes me want to light up and smoke.
Go smoke, kids. That's
smoke.
the message from this podcast. If you want to be cool.
But yeah, no, we all love the movie. Again, if you want to find us on the Twitter or the Instagram at Modern Life Pod, email us. Our email is modernlifepod@gmail.com. Any links you need are in the podcast description below wherever you're listening right now. There's also a tip jar link if you want to support the show.
On the website.
Yeah, our website, everything's on the description if you just look below. Just want to thank everyone for listening, and we will be back next week with something else. Don't know what yet, but you'll be hearing from us.
Bye.
Bye.